My therapist says I have a self-destructive streak. She's wrong. What I have is proof that some people don't deserve forgiveness, and I'm one of them. 6 months ago, my husband Nathan caught me in bed with his business partner. 3 months ago, he forgave me. Last week, he caught me again, this time with our contractor. Now I'm living in a studio apartment in Columbus while Nathan serves me with divorce papers I can't contest. He has video evidence from our home security system. Video of me bringing another man into the bed where Nathan and I conceived our children, made promises, built a life I apparently needed to destroy twice. The first affair was with Grant, Nathan's partner at their accounting firm. It started at the company Christmas party, 3 gin and tonics, and 20 years of marriage, making me stupid enough to follow Grant to the supply closet. We kissed between boxes of printer paper, hands fumbling like teenagers while my husband gave a speech about quarterly projections 50 feet away. I tasted peppermint schnapps and bad decisions, knew I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross, and did it anyway. Grant and I carried on for 4 months. Hotel rooms during lunch, his apartment when Nathan worked late, even his office once when I brought Nathan dinner and stayed after he left. We weren't in love, weren't even particularly compatible. Grant was arrogant where Nathan was humble, selfish where Nathan was generous, exciting where Nathan was steady. That was the whole point. After 2 decades of predictable kindness, I wanted something sharp enough to make me feel. Nathan found out because I got careless, left my phone unlocked, messages from Grant still on the screen. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can I see you again? My husband of 20 years read those words while bringing me coffee in bed, his face changing from confusion to comprehension to devastation in real time. "What is this?" he asked, voice barely a whisper, still holding the coffee mug like everything was normal. I could have lied. Could have said it was a wrong number, a misunderstanding, anything. Instead, I just stared at him, watching 20 years of trust shatter in his eyes. "How long?" was all he asked when I didn't answer. 4 months, I admitted, the words like ash in my mouth. He set the coffee down so carefully on my nightstand, like he was afraid he might throw it. Then he walked out of our bedroom, down the hall to the guest room, and locked the door. I heard him throwing up in the ensuite bathroom, violent retching that went on for minutes, the sound of a man's body rejecting the truth his mind couldn't process. The next 72 hours were hell. Nathan didn't yell, didn't throw things, didn't do any of the dramatic things betrayed spouses do in movies. He just got quiet, moved to the guest room, and looked at me like I was a stranger wearing his wife's face. Our daughters, home from college for spring break, knew something was wrong, but not what. We performed normal family dinners while our marriage died between the salad and dessert. Sarah, our oldest, kept asking if Dad was sick. Emma, our youngest, tried to lighten the mood with stories about her roommate. Nathan smiled at them, responded normally, never let them see how I'd destroyed him, even protecting me while his world imploded. That was the kind of man he was, putting our daughter's comfort above his own agony. On the 3rd night, Nathan asked me to meet him in his study. I thought this was it. Divorce papers, custody discussions, the business of dismantling 20 years. Instead, he sat behind his desk and said words I'll never forget. "I'm willing to try to forgive you." I stared at him, this man I'd betrayed in the worst possible way, offering me grace I didn't deserve. "Why?" I whispered. "Because I love you. Because we have a life together. Because people make mistakes and I believe in second chances. But there are conditions." The conditions were reasonable. Cut all contact with Grant, marriage counseling twice a week, complete transparency with phones, emails, social media, regular check-ins about our relationship, rebuilding trust brick by brick. I agreed to everything, cried with relief and shame, promised I'd spend the rest of my life earning back what I'd thrown away. The most painful condition was telling our daughters. Nathan insisted on honesty, age-appropriate but clear. The 4 of us sat in the living room where we'd celebrated countless Christmases, and I had to watch my children's faces change as they learned their mother was a cheater. "But why?" Emma asked, tears streaming. "Dad's perfect. He does everything for you." I had no answer that would make sense to a 20-year-old who still believed in fairy tales. How could I explain that sometimes perfect wasn't enough? That sometimes you destroyed good things just to feel the destruction? Sarah, 2 years older and always more perceptive, just looked at me with disappointment that aged her face. "Is this why you've been so happy lately? Because of him?" The shame of my daughter recognizing my affair glow, the happiness that came from betrayal rather than love, made me want to disappear. Nathan reached for my hand then, a show of unity for our girls despite everything, and I broke down completely. Even in his devastation, he was still protecting me, still being the parent our daughters needed. Nathan even handled Grant with more class than I deserved. Bought out his stake in the firm, gave him a generous severance, never told anyone why their partnership ended. Protected my reputation even as his own heart was breaking. That's who Nathan was. Decent even when dealing with indecency. Grant left town within a month, taking a job in Seattle, texting me once to say he was sorry for the pain we'd caused. I deleted his number and tried to pretend he'd never existed. Therapy was brutal. Dr. Martinez didn't let me hide behind excuses, made me examine why I'd risked everything for nothing. Daddy issues, midlife crisis, boredom, all of the above, and none of it sufficient to explain why I'd hurt the best man I'd ever known. Nathan sat through every session, hearing details that cut him fresh each time, still choosing to fight for us. The recovery was slow. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. Nathan would flinch when I got texts, ask casual questions that were really checks on my whereabouts, look at me sometimes with such hurt I couldn't breathe. But gradually, incrementally, we were healing. He started sleeping in our bed again. We made love tentatively, then passionately, laughed at inside jokes, made plans for our anniversary trip to Vancouver. I should have been grateful, should have spent every day thanking whatever force gave me a second chance. Should have worshipped the ground Nathan walked on for being man enough to forgive what most wouldn't. Instead, after 6 months of reconciliation, I was bored again. The contractor's name was Ryan, hired to renovate our kitchen, the one Nathan was surprising me with for our anniversary. 34 years old, divorced, the kind of manual labor muscles that men who work in offices can't achieve. He flirted casually while demoing cabinets. Nothing serious at first. But I flirted back, felt that familiar thrill of being wanted by someone new, someone who didn't know my history or my failures. "Your husband's a lucky man," Ryan said one afternoon, installing our backsplash while I pretended to work from home. "He doesn't see it that way," I replied, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Then he's blind." Such a cliché, such an obvious line. But I was 43 years old, soft around the middle, worried about crow's feet and gray roots. When a younger man with calloused hands and easy smiles called me beautiful, I chose to drink it down like water in a desert. The first time was in the guest bathroom, the one Nathan had just had Ryan retile. Pressed against Italian marble Nathan picked because I mentioned liking it once, I let another man touch me while my husband's trust rebuilt itself in another room. Quick and trashy, and everything my marriage wasn't. I cleaned myself up, served Ryan lemonade, discussed cabinet hardware like I hadn't just destroyed my second chance. It escalated from there. Every day Nathan went to work, Ryan found reasons to extend the renovation. We had sex in every room he was supposedly improving. The kitchen island Nathan designed for my baking. The breakfast nook where our family gathered. The pantry Nathan expanded just because I once complained about space. Each betrayal in a space meant to show Nathan's love. The lying became second nature again. When Nathan called during lunch to check in, something we'd started after reconciliation, I'd be breathless from Ryan, claiming I'd been moving furniture. When he noticed bruises on my thighs, I said I'd bumped into the new countertops. When Sarah visited for a weekend and commented that the renovation seemed to be taking forever, I launched into a speech about the importance of quality work, all while Ryan's number burned in my phone. "Mom seems different," Sarah told Nathan one evening, not knowing I could hear from the hallway. "Happier, but also, I don't know, guilty?" "She's been working hard on herself," Nathan replied, still protecting me. "Change is difficult." If only he knew what kind of change I'd been working on. The kind that involved a contractor half my age who called me beautiful, while installing the subway tile Nathan had chosen because it reminded him of our honeymoon in Paris. I knew about the security cameras. Nathan had them installed after the first affair, part of rebuilding trust. Full transparency, even in our own home. I told myself I was careful, staying out of their range. Told myself Nathan never checked them anyway. Too trusting, too focused on moving forward instead of monitoring the past. Told myself a lot of lies that turned out to be just that. The bedroom camera I didn't know about. Nathan told me later he'd installed it not to spy, but because he'd been having nightmares about coming home to find me with Grant in our bed. The camera was his way of managing anxiety, checking when paranoia struck that I was where I said I'd be. He'd planned to tell me about it once the nightmares stopped. They never did. Last Tuesday, Nathan came home early. "A migraine," he said, though later I wondered if he suspected something. Ryan was supposed to be gone, but we'd lost track of time in the bedroom. Our bedroom. The one place I'd thought had no cameras, the one sanctuary Nathan had left private. But trust, once broken, changes the rules. Nathan didn't confront us. He didn't burst in with righteous anger, just stood in the hallway, a silent sentinel to my latest betrayal, watching through the door I'd carelessly left ajar, recording everything on his phone, gathering evidence while his heart broke for the second and final time. Later, he told me he stood there for 10 full minutes, waiting to wake up from a nightmare. When he realized he was already awake, he left as quietly as he'd arrived. I found out he knew when I came home from picking up groceries. Nathan was in his study, laptop open, watching security footage. Not just from that day, but from weeks of days. The hidden camera in our bedroom he'd never told me about. My betrayals playing on repeat, timestamp by timestamp, a greatest hits reel of my cruelty. "I gave you everything," he said without looking up. "A second chance most people never get. Love, forgiveness, trust I rebuilt from nothing. And this is what you did with it." I tried to speak, to explain, to apologize, but he held up his hand. "Don't. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. There's nothing left to say." He was right. What could I possibly say? That I was sorry? I'd said that before. That it meant nothing? I'd said that too. That I loved him? Maybe once, but not in any way that mattered. "I need you to watch something," he said, turning his laptop toward me. It was footage of me from 3 months ago, during the reconciliation period. In our bedroom, crying in Nathan's arms after a particularly brutal therapy session. "I don't deserve you," I was saying on screen. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Yes, you do," Nathan's voice replied from off camera. "Everyone deserves a second chance. We're going to get through this." He clicked to another video. Us at Emma's 21st birthday dinner laughing at some joke, his hand covering mine on the table. Then another, slow dancing in our kitchen to our wedding song after the girls had gone back to school. Video after video of him choosing to love me despite everything, of me accepting that love while planning my next betrayal. "I documented our reconciliation," he said quietly. "Not to spy, but to remind myself during the dark moments that we were making progress, that forgiving you was worth it." I watched these when the nightmares came, when the mental images of you with Grant made me want to give up. Do you know what I see now when I watch them? I shook my head, unable to speak. "I see myself falling in love with a lie. I see you performing reconciliation while planning destruction. I see a fool who believed in someone who didn't believe in herself. Nathan, the girls don't need to know details, he continued, closing the laptop with a finality that echoed through the room. I'll tell them we're divorcing due to irreconcilable differences. You can tell them whatever you want, but if you tell them the truth, I'll make sure everyone knows. Your family, your friends, your book club, everyone will know exactly who you are. I nodded, throat too tight to speak. On the screen, I watched myself betray him again, saw my own face in the throes of passion that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with selfishness. Pack what you need for a few days, Nathan said. I'll have the rest sent wherever you end up. The papers will be ready by Friday. Don't contest anything and I'll keep it quiet. Fight me and I'll use every second of this footage. I packed while he sat in his study, still watching the evidence of my betrayal. 20 years of marriage reduced to a suitcase and a carry-on. As I loaded my car, our neighbor Margaret waved cheerfully, oblivious to the bomb exploding in our perfect suburban home. I waved back, already rehearsing the role of a woman who hadn't burned her life down twice. The studio apartment in Columbus was all I could afford on my salary. Nathan had been generous the first time, maintaining my lifestyle during our reconciliation. This time, I got exactly what I was entitled to by law and nothing more. No alimony after adultery, half the assets, but most went to keeping the house for the girls. I got enough to start over and a lifetime to wonder why I needed to. The divorce was finalized last month. Nathan handled everything through lawyers, never speaking to me directly again. The girls chose his version of events, sensing the truth even if they didn't know the details. They visit once a month, dutiful, distant, and counting the minutes until they can return to their father who never betrayed anyone. Ryan disappeared the day after Nathan caught us. Never finished the renovation, never returned my texts, probably moved on to another bored housewife with poor judgment and nice countertops. He was never the point anyway. Just the weapon I used to destroy my life a second time. My therapist, a new one since Nathan got Dr. Martinez in the divorce, asks why I think I sabotaged my second chance. We talk about self-worth, about feeling deserving of love, about patterns of destruction. But I know the truth is simpler and uglier. I didn't think Nathan would actually leave. Thought his forgiveness was weakness, not strength. Thought I could push boundaries forever because good men don't abandon their wives. I was wrong about everything. Nathan's forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was strength I couldn't match. His love wasn't boring. It was steady in a world where nothing else was. His trust wasn't foolishness. It was a gift I opened and smashed twice. Now I sit in this apartment, listening to neighbors fight through thin walls, eating takeout from containers, because I sold my wedding china, sleeping alone in a bed that smells like industrial laundry soap instead of Nathan's cologne. I scroll through his LinkedIn sometimes, torture myself with evidence of his success. The firm thriving without Grant's chaos or my drama. New hires who respect him, accolades for his leadership and integrity. But LinkedIn doesn't tell the whole story. Sarah let slip during her obligatory monthly visit that Nathan struggled for months after the divorce. Lost 30 pounds he didn't need to lose. Developed insomnia so severe he needed medication. Went to therapy 3 times a week just to process the betrayal of being fooled twice. He blamed himself, Sarah said, not looking at me as she spoke. Kept saying he should have known the reconciliation was fake. That a man who can't keep his own wife faithful twice must be fundamentally lacking something. That's not true, I said, the words automatic. Your father is... Don't, Sarah cut me off, sounding exactly like Nathan. You don't get to defend him, not anymore. She was right, of course. I'd given up the right to defend the man I'd betrayed, twice. But hearing about his self-blame, knowing I'd made this good man question his own worth, was a special kind of torture. Nathan had given me everything. Love, trust, forgiveness, a second chance most people never get. And I'd made him feel like he wasn't enough. Even Emma won't give me details about his life now. Just sits through our dinners, counting down until she can leave, offering minimal responses to my attempts at conversation. Your father seems happy, I ventured during our last meeting, fishing for information about the pediatrician. He deserves to be, was all Emma said, stabbing at her salad like it had personally offended her. There's no trace of me in his online presence. 20 years erased like a calculation error, corrected and moved past. Our daughters post pictures with him at their graduations, their birthdays, their achievements. I'm cropped out or absent entirely, the ghost editor of their lives. The worst part is the clarity that comes too late. I can see now what Nathan offered. Not just forgiveness, but the chance to become someone worthy of it. He handed me redemption, and I used it as permission to sin again. Gave me trust, and I weaponized it. Loved me when I couldn't love myself, and I punished him for it. My sister called last week, the only family member who still speaks to me. Told me Nathan's dating someone from his gym, a pediatrician, age-appropriate, no history of betrayal. They run marathons together, something I always mocked him for wanting to do. She's good for him, my sister said carefully. Helps him train, makes him laugh. I hung up and cried until my neighbors banged on the wall to shut up. Cried for the man who would have run marathons with me if I'd asked. Who would have laughed with me forever if I hadn't chosen temporary excitement over permanent partnership. Who gave me a second chance I lit on fire because I could. There won't be a third chance. Not with Nathan. Not with anyone worth keeping. Good men learn from their mistakes, and Nathan's mistake was believing I could change. I'm the cautionary tale now. The woman who had it all twice and threw it away twice. The one who proved that some people don't deserve forgiveness, no matter how freely it's given. My name is Rebecca. I was given the gift of a second chance, and I used it to prove I never deserved the first.